Israel's defense minister said today that the Israeli military will be sending more troops into Rafah. Israel says the incursion is wearing down Hamas. The announcement comes despite international concerns about a growing ground operation into the southern Gaza city. More than half of Gaza's population has fled to Rafah since the war began. But following evacuation orders from the Israeli military last week, around 600,000 Palestinians have now been driven out of Rafah. New satellite images released this week show the displacement of Gazans from Rafah since the evacuation orders were given. This is Rafah on May 4th, before evacuation orders were given, and in this picture, Rafah on Wednesday. The image shows another area of Rafah last week, and this is the same area just yesterday. While hundreds of thousands of Palestinians flee Rafah, that's exactly where the International Committee of the Red Cross says it's setting up a 60-bed emergency field hospital. Hisham Mhanna is a spokesperson for the International Red Cross, and he joins us from Deir el-Balah in Gaza. Hisham, it's nice to meet you. Thanks for taking the time today.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
You're opening up a field hospital in Rafah, and this comes as Israel is deepening its ground operations into that region. And as we've been hearing about aid workers being forced to flee and hospitals losing capacity to treat patients. So what aid and care will this field hospital be able to provide?
Well, this field hospital comes as a result of joint efforts between the International Committee of the Red Cross and many national societies, Red Cross societies, including the Canadian Red Cross, as well as the Government of Canada, to respond to urgently needed healthcare needs by the population. This hospital is capable of receiving an average of 200 patients on a daily basis, and there are 2 fully equipped operation theaters inside this hospital that can perform an average of 7 senior or major surgeries per day, or 15 minor surgeries per day. It also is equipped with an X-ray room, laboratory, and a maternity ward. There's also an established water treatment equipment or device that provides adequate quantities of fresh water needed for the hospital, as well as not to triage the wastewater generated by the hospital into the surrounding, as the hospital is located in western Rafah city, and it's surrounded by a large number of tents and many displaced people. So hopefully this hospital with 60 bed capacity will be able to contribute to responding to urgently needed healthcare service amidst a volatile and deteriorating situation resulted by, or generated also by, the military operation that was commenced on May the 6th.
Well, this facility is necessary because of the reduced healthcare capacity in the region. About 36 hospitals, I believe, at the start of the conflict, fewer than a third have functionality of any kind now, according to the World Health Organization. What is your sense about that worsening humanitarian and aid situation that exists inside Gaza right now?
Well, the entire healthcare system has collapsed in Gaza after many hospitals have come to rubble because they turned into battlefields and graveyards. This is something the International Committee of the Red Cross has warned against since the start of this conflict, is that healthcare facilities and workers are protected under the international humanitarian law and must be spared from this, the impact of this conflict. There's only one hospital remaining across all Gaza Strip that remains capable of providing advanced healthcare service. That's the Gaza European Hospital in Eastern Khan Yunis Governorate, where a surgical team from the ICRC, doctors and nurses, have been working and living there since last November, performing an average of 20 urgently needed surgeries. Now, these joint efforts require to be maintained, and the only way to maintain them is to continue providing these hospitals and the recently established field hospitals in southern Gaza with the medical supplies, with fuel, with the human resources, which all have been overstretched, and the closure of the Rafah crossing, which is the main gateway entering humanitarian aid and humanitarian workers as well, has been closed due to the military operation. We we need in Gaza to witness an increase in the humanitarian aid to be turned into a robust flow of unimpeded humanitarian aid that also arrives safely so that humanitarian workers can deliver it to the thousands of people across Gaza who are in desperate need for it.
What is the flow of aid situation right now, though, Hisham? There have been complaints from aid groups, concerns raised that since the Rafah gate was closed, as you say, that really it's non-existent. Israel insists that there is some aid getting in through the other entrance points into Gaza, and we know that the U.S. military is getting that dock, the temporary dock pier situation set up. But how is the flow of aid now compared to before the invasion of Rafah began? Because even then, it wasn't enough.
Well, the Israeli authorities were correct by saying some humanitarian aid was allowed to enter Gaza, especially in the last 48 hours via the Kerem Shalom crossing in southeast Gaza Strip. However, this remains very much limited quantity. A few dozens of trucks entering Gaza, fully loaded with aid, cannot suffice the needs of hundreds of thousands of people who have been living into unprecedented, inhumane living conditions for over 220 days now. Before the military operation was started in Rafah, we witnessed a dramatic increase in the amount of aid entering Gaza from different crossings, including the Rafah crossing. However, this amount has significantly decreased, which posed significant risks and limitations on the entire humanitarian response in Gaza. And that will, if the situation continues like this, humanitarian workers will be able to achieve only the bare minimum of a meaningful humanitarian response. And many people will be already in more vulnerable conditions, especially those injured people and sick people who have been, who are supposed to leave Gaza and exit Gaza via Rafah crossing to receive medical treatment abroad. These people are now at imminent risk of death because their their health situation is not stable.
So given those limitations, how do you sustain this field hospital? I mean, the ICRC obviously has tremendous resources in the world of aid provision, but even the ICRC is limited, and certainly if you can't get things into the region you're trying to service. So how do you sustain this field hospital? Do you have an arrangement with Israel to get extra things in, or do you just have to kind of have what you have and hope for the best?
Well, this is one of the main reasons why we maintain nonstop engagement with the Israeli authorities, and the other side of the conflict, as well as other authorities who would influence both parties to the conflict in our bilateral dialogue in order to, facilitate the entry of the aid generated or mobilized by the International Committee of the Red Cross, but also for the teams who are supposed to be crossing into Gaza since last week to work from the field hospital. This hospital was supposed to be run by at least 30 professionals from the national Red Cross societies who contributed to that, including Canadians, and in addition to the staff from the Palestine Red Crescent Society and the Ministry of Health, who are working side by side by the team is already on the ground. This hospital is supposed to contribute to helping people, but it cannot substitute an already established hospital that is capable of treating thousands of people at the same time, but requires to be supplied with everything it needs, including medical supplies, equipment, fuel, and manpower or human resources to be able to be functional. You mentioned the sea pier that is being established or supported by the U.S. Navy. This is a welcome step because it should be, helping in alleviating the suffering of the humanitarian of the people, impacted by this conflict. However, it cannot substitute the most efficient, reliable mean of transport, land-based transportation of aid, which is proven to be, cost efficient, time efficient, and it just needs to be facilitated by all parties involved in this conflict. And this is one of our main asks. And we call upon parties to the conflict to ensure the immediate and full protection of civilians and civilian infrastructure, including healthcare workers, healthcare facilities, and humanitarian workers who are working, every day despite all the challenges, to respond to the people's needs.
Hisham Mhanna with the International Committee of the Red Cross, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it, sir.